say before we start that Matt Conti is here, as he often is, and he will be filming the whole proceedings for the North End Waterfront News. So if ever you miss something and you think, what did we say? You can just go to Matt's site and you'll find out all about it. We are going to take a few votes right now and get through some things, and then we're going to get into the main part of the proceedings tonight. So, first off is the minutes. I know everyone's read them. Can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? Changes? Okay. Amy, you want to call the roll?
Sure. John Craigman?
Yes.
Woody Lynn?
Yes.
Bob Gore?
Yes.
Cheryl Cronin?
Yes.
Maggie Hunt?
Yes.
Chris Fincham?
Yes.
Jane Papalario?
Yes.
Suzanne LaVoy?
Yes.
And Georgia Murray?
Yes. Okay, moving right along, we have a new board member to approve. Many of you might remember Mae Bartlett. She was a board member from the Secretary's office maybe 3 years ago. And then Bill Griffiths took her place, and now she's coming back to us, which is lovely. But she did have another thing that she had to do tonight, so she's not here for her first board meeting, but she knows Greenway well. I know you've read her bio. She's certainly well qualified, and we're thrilled to have her. So may I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Great. Amy, want to call the roll?
Sure. John Craigman?
Yes.
Helen Chinchlichty?
Yes.
Woody Lynn?
Yes.
Bob Gore?
Yes.
Young Park?
Anyone else looking for it?
Mae Bartlett to the board. Great.
Terrific.
Cheryl Cronin?
Yes.
Maggie Hunt? Yes. Chris Fincham?
Yes.
Jane Papalario?
Yes.
Suzanne LaVoy?
Yes.
And Georgia Murray?
Yes. Great, thank you. And now we have to take a little more time on the next one. It's the approval of the 990 and Form PC that I know you've read, and just ask Jesse if there are any questions, or Jesse, you want to give an outline of it, or?
I'll just, this is our federal tax filing with Form 990 and our Massachusetts state tax filing with Form PC. At the federal level, there was a significant change 4 or 5 years ago in these filings that made them much more comprehensive. By this point, several years on, it's reasonably formulaic for the Conservancy. The answers are largely the same as in any previous year. There's a lot of numbers, but those numbers come out of the audited financial statements that were approved by the board at the last meeting. So I think it is reasonably straightforward. It is due for submittal November 15th. It is also pretty straightforward to get an extension if there are any questions or any concerns. Most nonprofits actually get extensions, and so proud to file on time, but not a big deal if we don't. And so if anyone had any questions, happy to answer or take them offline for further investigation.
Any questions anybody have? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Sure, we'll do a roll call. Helen Chinchlichty?
Yes.
John Craigman?
Yes.
Woody Lynn?
Yes.
Bob Gore?
Yes.
Young Park?
Yes.
Cheryl Cronin?
Yes.
Maggie Hunt?
Yes.
Chris Fincham?
Yes.
Jane Papalario?
Yes.
Suzanne LaVoy?
Yes.
And Georgia Murray?
Yes. Okay, thank you. It was nice to get that done as quickly as we did, because I don't think that was the reason that we have everybody here. So I would like to just sort of frame the discussion. Linda's going to lead us in a discussion of the Greenway from a perspective of what's there now, what could be there, what's happening with planning, both at the VRA level and at the state level. What are the issues, what's going on? And we're doing this not because we're going to take a vote tonight, or not because we're even going to agree on the process tonight in terms of whether we would ever weigh in on an approval, but because we think as the Greenway board, what gets built along the Greenway matters to us. And what we want to see is something that we know and are as informed as board members as we possibly can. So it's not just, did you happen to see that article today or whatever, but that we really have an understanding. I think you all know that Linda Jomesh has a deep understanding of what's going on, and has been around in this field of working in and about the Central Artery and the Greenway for many, many years. And so she's going to give us a sense of what's going on. And then 2 developers have agreed to come and talk to us about their particular thoughts and plans for their sites. And this will only be the first of what we'll do. I hope to do more, and other developers who wanted to come just couldn't come tonight. But we'll do this of what's happening along the Greenway. And then sometime in the next several months or whatever, we'll have a discussion about should we have a process for figuring out approvals. So does that work for everybody? Okay. Linda, where are you? There you are. Okay, great.
Georgia and Jesse had asked me to just summarize the number of different planning studies that are underway, directed really by the city, that are affecting the Greenway district. And a lot of this is, we're at the heart of it, the parks are in the middle, and is the driver actually for a lot of the work that's being done. Zoning that was done many, many years ago, guidelines, review processes that they use were basically before the park systems were open and active, and the, sorry, it would be easier if I'm talking over a slide as opposed to this. There was, in 2010, the city PRA undertook an effort to develop guidelines for all of the development that abutted the Greenway parks. And this was driven by the desire to protect this investment in park resources, to ensure really active public realm, and so all of the adjacencies, the circulation and whatnot, worked in concert with the parks being as wonderful experience as possible. And it also looked at issues of development intensity, varying levels of development, and what the associated impacts would be on the park environment, from wind, shadow, circulation, all of the environmental impacts, the horticulture, and evaluated different development scenarios, and then came down to a recommendation on what would be appropriate in this corridor. And that's been in place for a couple of years right now. A subsequent study was then undertaken by, again at the lead of the BRA, which focused on the waterfront district only. That's driven by the fact that there's a municipal harbor plan. This is a complicated interweaving of different processes. Our Chapter 91, it's a state environmental review process, requires the development of a municipal harbor plan. This is a document that complements the city's zoning, but it's one that is much more prescriptive about public benefits in the waterfront district and what requirements development along the waterfront have to meet and what they do not. This municipal harbor plan that we currently have was developed, I don't know the date of it, Suzanne, you may know, but many, many years ago. It's outdated in the context of the new Greenway parks. And so what the city has embarked upon is a design process. It's actually a 2-year effort to update the municipal harbor plan for the waterfront district, which basically runs from Christopher Columbus Park down just about to the Congress Street Bridge. And the focus is on that. So it's an overlapping study on top of the Greenway District study, which they did a number of years ago. And this waterfront district study, which is in the harbor planning process, it's a significant planning effort. It's got a very rigorous public planning process and public review process. They have an advisory committee of which the Conservancy is a member. I attend on behalf of the Conservancy. It has virtually, as membership, every waterfront business, neighborhood organization in that entire corridor that cares about the park space. And they're going about it very methodically with a very significant focus on the public realm in terms of what kinds of public spaces do you want to see along the waterfront? What would be, what's the city's and the stakeholders' vision about what the waterfront could be? And these are areas, the space in front of the aquarium, it's the space behind the harbor garage, it's the interweaving public spaces around the harbor tower development. going all the way up to sort of Christopher Columbus Park on down, a little bit the connection to the channel. And then this plan will then be another document that's used to review private developments that are proposed on, along the Greenway. So why I believe why it matters to the Conservancy is that development can be terrific for the parks, or it can have adverse impacts. And we're really wanting to, I say that we collectively, working with the developers along the corridor, trying to figure out optimally, as looking forward, like what do we want, as opposed to development being proposed in the context of what we don't want. And so it wants to be forward-looking. It wants to capture opportunities, to leverage more investment in the public realm, and we might actually have this showing up here. So we'll see if I kind of made it up closely or not, because there's a lot of work, a lot of effort, and it's really complicated, the interface between all of the different regulations. And I think in part that this effort by the city is to try to, there's been so many different planning studies for so many different subsets of this whole zone, is to try to integrate that in a better way. So developers who are proposing projects along the Greenway have a better sense of what the ground rules are and what the objectives are. Don't have to guess. And the neighborhoods, the abutters and whatnot can feel that they had an early input in the review process. So do you want to just pop back, I'll go through real quick. Is that the beginning? I don't think so. Okay, it is. And so this is just, there were zoning controls for the parks. There weren't zoning controls done anything for the development along the edges. And so that's in 2010. That's what the description I just did. And the current study that's underway right now is the January 2013 to January 2015. And this is focused more on the Waterfront district. Complicated piece is that in addition to the focus on the Waterfront district, the city is also looking at the entire Greenway district to enact zoning controls for the entire district. So it's this two-pronged study, which it's they sort of shift gears and they're on different timetables, but ultimately the objective is to come together so there's a unification of the objectives. So let's jump here. So just the boundaries, it's the entire Greenway district. It's really going up from the government center garage area all the way, here's our corridor down through Chinatown. And this is all formed around the Greenway parks. And so we're the centerpiece, which is exciting. But it's also focusing on the water edge, which is another parallel piece of public infrastructure. This is, you don't have to read this, but it's just showing the number of factors that were evaluated. It's view corridors, it's heights of adjacent buildings, it's environmental, it's wind impact, it's character issues, and this was all done approximately 2 years ago. Next. And then all of those guidelines that were done in 2010 were then recently codified through an approval by the Boston Redevelopment Authority Board and then the subsequent zoning board just this October. And these are I just gave you sort of this is a synopsis of what's in the code. So these are new requirements that very much driven by what sort of protecting and enhancing the Greenway parks. I guess that's the most simple way to do it. The Conservancy was part of the process developing this and from the perspective of the parks. And so the regulations around this was just adopted in this October. Next.
Michelle?
So is it silent on height and density?
What they just adopted now is silent. And so what they're planning to do is go district by district to finalize height and density requirements for that corridor. And they have recently, they proposed sort of as a test drive, the Town Cove area. The response was not that great, and they've kind of gone back to the drawing board a little bit on reviewing height and density requirements. There isn't a timeline. I just spoke to them today. There is not a timeline to have the height and density zoning approved, the new height and density requirements approved by a certain date. It's in the context, they're doing it incrementally. It's kind of a convoluted process. I'm doing my best to keep my brain wrapped around of how it's going. I know it's challenging for people that are reviewing it and participating. I think the BRA has a great team of a consultant team that's involved, that's quite experienced, that's kind of driving this for them. There's been lots and lots and lots of public meetings. I think people are pretty clear about how this is evolving, but the one piece of information that, to be honest with you, I just understood today is in terms of implementing height and density for the corridor, this is going to happen over time. And it may be on a case-by-case basis as development comes up. And that's as much as I understand about that right now.
Linda, the town code, you said the response was not good. The response from whom?
I was not at the meeting. I was out of town for that meeting, and the person at the BRA to whom I spoke, I think it had to do with the height requirements. I think from the existing height requirements that's in the current zoning, it was proposed approximately a 30-foot increase. Don't quote me exactly. Matt, turn your camera off. It's about approximately 30 feet of additional height beyond what is currently allowed by the existing zoning, and there was some feedback from neighbors that they did not like that height, and so the BRA took it back from the zoning board. So
They didn't take it back. They voted, the zoning board voted it down.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't there, so
No,
thank
I know
you for
you weren't. I
helping
just
me.
went-
Okay, I just want to do a little parentheses here. I think we
Please.
need to talk about the whole, I mean, clarifying questions are great, but we don't want to delve down into a particular development until we get a presentation of that particular development, because, so this is the overview
Yeah.
that we're looking for.
Jesse, why don't you keep on? So just to reiterate, and the focus of the study that's actively underway right now is on the Waterfront District. And so in terms, and its focus really, it's going to be the driver are the major development projects, specifically the Harbor Garage project that's proposed for the Harbor Garage site right now. And that's what's going to be probably the largest project that will be impacted by the requirements in this process that's underway right now. So it's a 2-year study. It's being led by UTL as a consultant firm. It's a BRA process, and this is the one where there's an active public process going on regularly. Next. So just one more time, and I'm sorry to sort of drill down again on the geographic district. I think it's a little bit complicated. So everything that's in red, even the dark, and is considered part of the Greenway district. The municipal harbor planning process, which is underway right now, which focuses primarily on the harbor, but it also affects buildings that are immediately above the Greenway, is this dark area right here. So this is considered right here as the downtown waterfront district. That's the area that we're focusing on with this large group of public realm, shadow, height, wind, water sheet activation. What should happen in that area? Yep.
Can you just give us either streets or landmarks on that area, just so we know?
Okay, here's Christopher Columbus Park
Okay.
at the north of it, and at the south of it is the Congress Street Bridge. So that's what's been termed the waterfront district, downtown waterfront district in the city. Go ahead, next. So again, the scope of this is they're doing sort of technical analyses. As part of this team, which is different from the Greenway district focus team, is that they have people that are very versed in waterfront development and also the whole in climate change and sea level change and whatnot is an added component to this effort. And then what the product is going to be a municipal harbor plan is the main thing that we should care about right now. And the implications for the Greenway, which I'll probably zone in on, is the best thing, is that in this area, which is the area of the municipal harbor plan, and here we get a Christopher Columbus Park up here and Congress Street Bridge, along this corridor, even though technically the Greenway parks are not waterfront parcels, development that happens on this side, it's also happening on the Greenway Park side. So they're really looking at them in tandem. And the public realm plan that's being developed is looking at the Greenway and its relationship to a development that's on the waterfront as well as the water edge. So it's, I think that what will be interesting is, and what Georgia has done is ask developers who are going to be, and today is I believe we have 2 coming, to talk about their relationship to the water, to the public realm, and to the Greenway parks. And they're interacting with this planning process for this harbor plan. And hopefully, the objective by the city is to come to a clear sense, and get clear through all this process about the kinds of amenities that can be considered as part of a development. What would the edges look like? What kinds of activities on the ground floor? If there's a sort of a marina area that's associated with the project, what would that look like in the future, and how could that be optimally developed? So it's both. This study is water and Greenway. The Greenway district study is really just zoning in on the parks themselves. But there's such an overlap. I believe that's why I know that's why the BRA is doing this concurrently. And at this point, it might be easier for me just to answer questions because it's a complicated mix of, but it's current and it's relevant now. And there are some major development projects along the Greenway corridor that some are just starting in the pipeline, others are actively in it, be it the Government Center Garage, the Harbor Garage project, the Town Cove project, the Hook Lobster site, which is, also in this area. Parcels that are down towards Chinatown potentially as a development site. So all of this will impact the Greenway parks, but also the broader city as a whole. And so I think it's a balancing effort and an understanding and having a dialogue up front as opposed to people proposing something and guessing at what, I sort of said this before, but I think that's important. If there's a consensus among sort of city folks, stakeholders about what we'd like to see, then that's really good information to give to adjacent development projects to drive their planning.
Thanks, Linda. I think what we're going to do is have that as a backdrop. We've got several developers here who we want to recognize their time, and we're thrilled that they came to speak with us. And so we'll talk about those developments, and then Linda will get you at the end then too, because I think when you have it in context of some real live developments, it will put it all in a different light for you all. And again, we're not here to say that this development is good or bad. We're just here to inform ourselves, to understand what the issues are, and to welcome people who want to improve the way of life in the city. So Dennis, are you doing the honors for Town Cove? Or?
Sure.
I'd like to introduce Dennis Cannon. He is one of the developers on the Town Cove property. And he really was willing to come and talk to us in the midst of all this, and we really do appreciate the time and effort that they've given us.
Well, first let me thank Georgia and all of you for taking the time to hear from us. I'm Dennis Cannon, principal at New Boston Ventures with David Goldman, and I have with me tonight Mike Duran and Kevin Ahern, who are from Boston Residential Development, affiliated with Otis and Ahern. We have two developments that are proposed, two neighboring developments.
Dennis, I'm so sorry.
I know, I thought Don was...
I totally screwed up. Don, I know you have something you have to go to, and
we actually do want to go second.
I didn't do that to you, Don. I don't think Don needs much of an introduction around here, but Don is going to talk to us about the Boston Harbor Garage. And Don, I do apologize.
Keep the lights up, because I'm having a hard time seeing this even with my glasses. Good evening. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight. I'm Don Chaffaro, and my partner Ted Otis is over there. We're thrilled to have been asked to present our current thinking for the Harbor Garage site in the Boston Waterfront. We believe we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change the face of this part of the waterfront and add a dynamic, welcoming development connecting the Greenway to the water. As the chairman of the Municipal Harbor Planning Committee, Jack Hart, put it, to create a wow. Our site is an important gap in the waterfront. The current garage creates a 300-foot wall blocking the Greenway from the harbor. There are a number of ways that we can plan the site. The garage can stay just as it is. We can build on top of it, or it can be demolished to construct a new project. There are many possibilities for the site configuration if we build a new project. We've engaged the firm of Ad Inc. as our planning expert and part of our architectural team to help track the dialogue and to put form to the site possibilities. Fred Kramer and Tamara Roy are studying the site in an aspirational way and the kinds of public realm opportunities we can create, and they will share their initial thoughts with you now.
Thanks, Don. I'm just going to give a very brief introduction. If we could go to the next slide, which I think is an agenda slide. Let me just tell you briefly what we're hoping to accomplish here with you all tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to share early thoughts about this extremely important site. So Tamara is going to drive the bus on this presentation. She's one of our senior architects. She's got a planning background as well as a significant design background. And we want to walk you through the following. The existing urban condition, I think you're all well aware of it, but it bears a bit of repeat to understand a little bit more what's there today. We're going to talk primarily and exclusively about public realm possibilities with the garage. What could we do with what's there now? What could we do to increase the public's access to the waterfront to create greater symbiotic relationship between the fabulous Greenway and the growing and fabulous waterfront? This is an incredibly important site. Tam will share with you why. And then what could we do if the garage wasn't there? What kinds of things occur to us that might be of interest, specifically related to the public realm? So I think that's where our focus has been, and I'll have Tim start and walk you through those things. We appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I do want to mention also that we've partnered with the landscape firm Ground Inc., run by Shauna Gillies-Smith, to do some of the possibilities that we're showing. I'm going to give her some credit. And this slideshow that we're showing you is a condensed version. Okay, louder?
Can't hear. Louder.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is a condensed version of what we showed at the Municipal Harbor Plan meeting in mid-September. Just keep reminding me if I need to go louder. So just looking
my voice is a little different from her.
at the
from her
existing
voice, so.
urban condition. I think most of us know there are lots of view corridors from the city out to the water. Really, except for where the harbor garage is, it forms a wall. And we think we have the opportunity to create significant access and activity at this location. There's a programming gap here, so if you look at the very active tourist node to the north at the aquarium and the ring fountain, which is wonderful, and then to the south, the hotel and the taxi, water taxi, etc. It's wonderful. And in between is a gap. And this is what the gap looks like. So on the top, you can see the different sides of the waterfront plaza behind the harbor garage, a lot of brick and concrete, multi-level, not very much going on there, as well as the cul-de-sac and the area both in front and behind the harbor towers. So what we asked ourselves was, what is the public realm potential for this site? And we did listen to a lot of what we heard at the Municipal Harbor Plan charrettes that were held both in March 15th and in with a 1 in 3 group, which are young professionals living in the city. And we heard the following: waterfront dining, interpretive signage and wayfinding, really important along the stretch of the waterfront and the Greenway. 4-season activities, people would love to see that. Elevated public viewing areas, places for kids. The aquarium, I don't know if you've been there with your kids trying to wait for an hour for tickets, and there isn't really much for kids to do there. International nights on the water or other cultural events. A beach. We don't have one of those in downtown Boston yet. A canal that brings the harbor to the Greenway, or a farmer's market or other rotating attractions. So when we start to look at the public realm possibilities, one part of it is, what if we keep the garage as is? So just to remind everyone of how it works, there's actually ramps in the center coming from both sides, the north and the south. There's a narrow sidewalk on the north side, the aquarium side, and there's relatively shallow retail depth, so it limits the retailers that would want to come to this site. And if we look at the north and the east side, you can see on the north, as I said, fairly narrow sidewalk with 4 lanes of entrance and exits of cars going in and out of the garage. On the waterfront side, a wider overhang area, and then a 62-foot wide open space, which currently belongs to the BRA. We imagine that as part of the project, it may be improved. On the south side, a wider sidewalk, but there's landscaping that gets in the way of making it feel as big as it might feel. And also 2 lanes of cars entering and exiting and a loading dock. And then on the Greenway side, a big wide sidewalk, 20-foot wide, with street trees and a layer of parking. But sort of the talk bubble really says it all. It's kind of 7 parking decks which overpower the scale of the ground floor retail or any activity there. So if we left the garage as is, we tried to find some examples in other cities. So let's say the one in Philadelphia, where you could try to do something nicer at the ground floor, do some canopies, some lighting, add other retailers, or even have some accordion doors. We could improve the site that way. If we build over the existing garage, then that gives us the potential of investing more money in its skin, and there are many, many different interesting ways of reskinning the garage if that were the case. But we really don't open up access to the water, so we don't create significant Chapter 91 issues. And just generally, the sidewalks could be improved, but not widened. So then we thought, okay, as we said, aspirational, what if we shaped the development from the ground up? The one thing we noticed was that the site actually has really unique goals and opportunities on each side, the north, the east, the south, and the west. So let's take them one at a time. So we look at the north. The goals are to connect the Greenway to the aquarium and the waterfront, possibly to unify the whole Central Wharf area as a singular place or a square, to activate the ground floor of the new Harbor Garage project, and propose open space uses that don't require that much sun because it is on the north side. This is the space that we're talking about. So we looked at some inspirational photos. We could widen the sidewalks. We could have outdoor cafes. We're laughing at Van Gogh. Yeah. We could use paving to make a bigger space at the aquarium. We found 2, one in Barcelona and Portland, that are really water inspired. We thought those were interesting. To sort of engage kids and families, we could provide more interactive street furniture. So we did 2 possibilities on this side. We drew, so the red line is the existing Harbor Garage footprint. And in this case, all we did was push the new building back so that it matches the 32-foot wide sidewalk at the Greenway, and it comes right across to the aquarium. We've added banners and lighting, outdoor cafes. This is one where we just said, let's unify that whole space with paving. It suddenly feels much bigger and becomes a forecourt to the aquarium and the water. And then actually the third one, forgot about the third one, is if we push the building back, similar to one of the Greenway design studies, to try to get that peak out to the water, we create a 60-foot wide sculpture plaza, which was on the north side, so we did put a shadow in there. So when we come around to the east side, the goals are to energize that harbor walk area, the water sheet, activate the ground floor, connect to the aquarium, and try to give some things for kids. Definitely has a lot of possibilities because of the size of it. So maximize waterfront dining was one aspiration. You can see from legal seafood harbor side how people love to come to the water and eat. Add places where you can picnic or lounge. These are in Paris and also on the Esplanade. Have engaging art that pulls people to that space. Add that pool or a beach. You can see the one on the bottom left, really interesting, real pool in Berlin. People go out and swim there. Program events both in the winter and the summer. So we did 3 possibilities for this side of the site as well. So we created several zones here. You can see at the far left the outdoor dining possibility, and then maybe a children's learning lab, outdoor play area, and then a green space that works on a couple of levels, trying to get down to the water a little bit more than you do currently, and then possibly, you know, even a seasonal stage where boats pull up and they have concerts. Or second possibility, also outdoor dining, a green terrace, but then a swimming pool. Now I have to say as a caveat here that in order to keep children safe and by code, there would have to be a fence around this swimming pool. They can't just stumble in and drown. And then the third possibility I thought was interesting for Four Seasons was if you like the pool idea, to do hot tubs, and they take the heat from the building and recover it, and then so you'd have hot and cool pools that could work all year round. Again, needing a fence, however. Coming around the south side, the goals on the south side, connecting the Greenway to the waterfront, activating that ground floor, and then proposing open space uses that could benefit from more sun. And we really, this is especially telling where the Greenway is a little narrower here, and then it just opens up into this throat. That really means that this space, as the sun comes around from the east to the south, gets a tremendous amount of sun. So again, we looked at indoor, outdoor bars, restaurants, hotel lobbies, lounges, opening out into that sunny space, having areas with chaise lounges, both for the winter and then fire pit, or summer and then fire pits for the winter. Maybe some recreational games, beach volleyball, etc., happening in that space, or a pool that links the waterfront to the Greenway. So we show three possibilities here. This one is just a simple widening of the existing sidewalk, pulling that building back so that those hotel lobbies or lounges reach out and you can see, like now, to the water from the Greenway. Or this one, if we were really willing to pull the building much farther back, then you could have games out there. We've got bocce and ping pong and volleyball happening. Or this one, which really did come out of that 1 and 3, charrette, which was a canal that leads from the water to the Greenway, and then the sandy beach that actually faces south. And then in the winter time, that might turn into a skating rink. And you can see here some of the little fire pits that happen as well. And then lastly, coming around to the Greenway side, we've heard over and over again, if you have a new building, make its front on the Greenway. All the old buildings had their backs to the Greenway. Let's deal with that as a front. Activate the ground floor and possibly see through the building to the water as another possibility. So this is the space we're talking about. So you could continue that sidewalk dining and shopping all the way around. Have a building entrance that fronts on the Greenway, or create that through gallery. That's a shopping gallery, four-season space that goes through an atrium. We did two possibilities here. This one, just trying to show that you could open that out and have a major entrance of some kind reaching out to the park here. Or this one, if we were willing to eliminate some of the parking along here, then you would create this sense of real openness to the Greenway and have outdoor seating and more park seating that bridges that space onto this side. So lastly, we just looked at the entire site again, since we've sort of broken it into pieces. We take it again in whole. If we look at the entire site, it's possible to widen all the sidewalks on any side. So let's say we said we want to relate to the front of these buildings along the Greenway. We'd like to relate to that wider sidewalk at the Greenway and that wider sidewalk at the Greenway. You could just widen the sidewalk all the way around, and that alone would be a huge improvement. But then we also, if we decided you wanted a major open space, then the question is, you can't do both, so would you rather it be on the north side, or would you rather it be on the south side? We sort of left that as an open-ended question. And that's it. I'm going to leave it to Fred or Don to close.
Put a lid.
Okay.
Fred's going to make a brief comment again. So it's quite clear that this is an incredibly important site. In very few areas along the Greenway does the waterfront get as close to the Greenway as it does here. And in very few areas on the waterfront is there the impenetrable barriers created with respect to that relationship, that dialogue, that permeability, if you will. So we think that there are challenges and opportunities here, and we're working with a number of different entities to try to get some prioritization around public realm goals and objectives, hence focusing on what it is that everybody will experience at the ground plane in terms of ventilation, permeability, access, public programming, et cetera, et cetera. So you've been generous with your time. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to Dawn. I know wants to put a lid on things, but then I'll come back up and we can take any questions and interaction with you. And I know Dawn has to.
Thank you, Brent, Tamara. So as a community, we need to answer two questions. Do we want to keep the existing garage, or do we want to have a new project? This is a question that has been put to the Municipal Harbor Committee. Second question is, what types of amenities and public realm opportunities does the public want to see on this site? In order to develop a consensus, we'll continue our community outreach and ongoing discussions with the Municipal Harbor Planning Committee and interested stakeholders. We have a website, www.harborgarageproject.com, with an email address where your ideas can be submitted, info@shafaro.com. The results of the MHP process will determine the content and the character of the Boston Wharf District and the waterfront in perpetuity. Collectively, we all bear a special responsibility as stewards of the public trust to create a project that welcomes all residents and visitors to experience the beauty of the Greenway and the harbor. Hopefully, we can, by working together, create a world-class project worthy of this city at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, really, and my apologies
So
again
it's
for
up to you. If
skipping
you
around.
want to take questions or not, we
Are
can.
they-
It's really your call.
I think we have time for about 5 minutes of questions from the board, and then we'll see how that goes, Cheryl?
I just want to make sure I'm clear on, this is very interesting, obviously. The aspect of your presentation, which maintains the garage, I assume what you're proposing is the possibility of a project on top of the garage. Okay.
It is possible.
Okay, so I'm probably throwing you a softball here, which I'm sure you'll appreciate, but putting aside permitting and legal issues from a design and financial perspective, is there any good reason to keep the garage?
More of a financial question. It's a design question.
Here's
Let me ask the client to answer that. That's softball question.
Here's the interesting question, interesting point. The garage, when we bought it, had about a 6% return on equity. Today it has about a 9.5%, 10% return. It has a $9.5 million, almost $10 million cash flow. So as an investment, it's a pretty good investment. Those of us that are in the real estate development business could only do that by mistake. It's good fortune. So now, if you keep the garage in place and you build something on top of it and you reskin it, and for example, if you put residential units on top of it, it would be a spectacular place to live. You would preserve all of the income and you would enhance the income. You'd have, in effect, the zero land cost would be an excellent opportunity. If you just want to think about risk and reward, that's pretty good. If you want to think about all the other things that can happen, well, it comes with great opportunity, but also considerable risk.
Thank you.
Can I just say something? In terms of keeping the garage or not, and the neighborhood itself has a concern for keeping the garage, no matter what, not in its particular state, but having some capacity for parking. And the aquarium would be particularly hard hit if there was not some kind of a parking accommodation in place. So, I mean, would you agree on to that?
Absolutely. It's always been part of the plan to not have any interruption in the parking for Harbor Towers or for the aquarium, because we know it's so important. So keeping the garage as is would obviously not be a problem. If you begin to stage construction and, save the parking, so you always maintain. There are 1,400 cars in that garage, and the absolute need between the aquarium and the Harbor Garage, Harbor Towers people is less than a third of that.
But any future garage, any future project that we would help you envision has an underground parking component, which would replace one-for-one the parking that's there.
It's a vital function.
Anything else?
Wondering from an economic,
If I could just ask, if just the way we, oh, you're, what are you doing back there? Come on out.
there were no seats when I came in, I was a little bit late, so. Okay, from a economic point of view, is there any sort of push and pull between keeping the garage and mass and height? In other words, does the project, does it need less height in mass if the garage stays versus if the garage comes down? Is that?
The nature of trade-offs on height and density with respect to cost drivers is a complex equation. We purposely, not hiding anything, not focused on height and density. There's no question that there's a relationship between height and density depending on the drivers for a project that the city and the stakeholders would envision. So absolutely, and I can't answer that specifically because I've not done a financial analysis. It's sometime in the future. There'll be deep financial conversations with a number of the stakeholders through the assessments of the developer and the developer's team. But I don't have that answer. Donnie, if you want to add anything to that, you certainly feel well.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly, with these different views of the ground floor activation, may not be stated clearly, but the implication is that there is a trade-off between a more active ground floor activation plan and a building on top, which would have to pay for all of that. Is there a sense from your perspective as to is that a trade that you're proposing to the community in order to make the project feasible, and is that why you're emphasizing the ground floor activation? Because obviously that the quid pro quo is going to be the more you activate the ground floor, the higher you're going to have to go in order to pay for it.
There certainly has an impact. The amount of ground plane that is used for built and unbuilt programming that allows for the things that the planning goals seem to be suggesting will have an impact on how tall and how much. There's no question about that.
So I guess my question is, what is the forum to make that trade? Is that a discussion with the city? Do you intend to go to the community and say, here's what you get if you allow more height?
Let me just take it first. We're in the very early stages of the Municipal Harbor Planning Committee process. So I think that's a formal interaction, and we're waiting for some feedback from them on the public realm priorities and hierarchies, if you will, in terms of that. And I think from that particular point, we take the lead of the Boston Redevelopment Authority, the other planning guidelines that are being continuing to evolve that have been put in place, including Greenway guidelines, et cetera, because it is evolving. And we go through that process of interaction and engagement with all of the stakeholders that any large project would go through in this city. So those are the steps as I see them. What would you add or change to what I said?
I was going to add that I think looking forward, I think we would expect to show different alternatives to this site so that they illustrate those trade-offs, right? So that you're not just looking at one option, you're looking at, okay, if you've got a major open space on the site, what does it mean? If you do this other thing to the entire aquarium, Central Wharf ground plane, what does that mean to the project? So we will try to have that as more of a dialogue between options.
It's a little hard to go and say, here, look at all these things we could do without answering the questions about the alternatives. As it's a new build form. We certainly intend to get there, but starting at the ground where everybody experiences the benefits and the challenges is where we felt we should be at this time, especially with the municipal.
Any other questions from the board? Linda?
Just one small, quick comment in response to that. This is a very different way about going in terms of planning for a project, and for a lot of people, it's a refreshing flip than having it start out of the starting blocks with a giant tall building that everyone says no, 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 and it's a reactive process. And so it's enabling everyone to dream a little bit about what's possible. Then there's no question there's a subsequent process when you start to, okay, if this is people's view of the ground floor, how do you make that happen? But it's a nice changing the dynamic as opposed to being adversarial out of the starting blocks, and sort of seeing if there's a consensus about what should happen on the ground floor, and focusing for change, leading with public realm and ground floor and what that experience can be, as opposed to having to react to no. Just
So I'm conscious of time, but are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It is a major part of the Greenway. We look forward to talking with you more. And so, let me try this again, Dennis. I really do apologize. I just went down one piece of the agenda.
What happens when we run out of time?
No. I definitely want to keep it on time for Dennis and his team.
So as I was saying,
So I think we're just going to lead right in so that we can wrap this meeting up at 7 o'clock as advertised. So thank you, Dennis, and again, welcome.
Dennis Cannon, Principal of New Boston Ventures, Mike Durand, Kevin Ahern, Boston Residential Development. We're proposing 2 neighboring developments, both on tiny sites, very constrained, obviously very different scale than what you just heard. And I want to start by, well, we're going to have our architects, New Boston's architects, Feingold, Alexander, Jim Alexander, and Tony Schaub talk about them, and then you'll hear from David Hassin on the India Street project. Ours is on Broad Street. But first, I want to introduce and have Harry Collings, whom many of you know from his days at the BRA, talk about the zoning issues. So, thank you.
I'll be very brief. The zoning commission had one hearing for the Greenway. One second. Zoning commission is having a second hearing regarding rezoning of the Greenway to reflect the Greenway guidelines. The next meeting is November 20th, and the BRA is recommending a lower height because of some community concerns. The original presentation by the BRA to the zoning commission was 130 feet, and the next hearing they're going to be recommending 120 feet for these 2 parcels. This is not a project approval. This is just for the zoning, to complete the zoning for the town code section of the Greenway. And later there will be a full Article 80 process with complete community input at a later time. But, this is just a presentation now to give you a sense of what the 2 projects may look like, showing the existing conditions and proposed uses, ground floor uses, and above. So I think we'll just, in the interest of time, just have Jim Alexander from Feingold Alexander present the first project.
All right, thank you all for having us. We talked a little about those buildings with the back ends facing the Greenway. We have that situation here. This is the site that we're talking about. David will talk a little about his site on India Street. So this is what we're referring to as 110 Broad Street. It's a triangular piece on the corner, and we includes a Bullfinch building. As you may know, there's a small warehouse building on this corner, which was part of the original Bullfinch plan for the area. The plan we have here does a little bit of the integration with the Greenway and the harbor, and that this pier was actually, the outline of the original pier. We've been working with our landscape architects, Copley Wolf, to begin to indicate somewhat where that pier actually was landed at one time. So there's some throwback to the original waterfront, developing the space between the buildings too as access further up into Broad Street and into downtown. So that's the basic footprint of the building. The ground floor would be a retail, we think, restaurant and cafe use on the ground floor. There's some other images just to show you how this fits into the context. As Harry mentioned, we've now gone from the original 130 feet to 120 feet. So if you look back at the whole context of the harbor, you begin to see our building at this point. the concept has been to really put a fresh face, if you will, on the Greenway. So we have a substantial amount of glass that faces the Greenway, whether it's clear or fitted or various combinations. But the idea was to make a welcoming and clear expression on the Greenway. Just taking another view, looking back in the Greenway, and this would be our building at this location in terms of its scale. There's a couple more of those just to... The primary use, of course, up above is residential. As I said, the ground floor would be commercial and restaurant. Again, from the north, a view of the building in that context. And then if we were to look from the north along the Greenway and back, again, the lower floor of retail, we have a different expression on the lower two floors where we've introduced bay windows to really further animate the lower level.
Jim, you might want to put them all on that one because people can see it easier.
Oh, okay.
What height is that building?
This building is 120 feet, which is reduced from the Greenway original recommendations, which were 130, which met some discussion with the city, so we pulled back to 120 feet at this point.
But the project is still very viable for you at 120 feet?
It's valuable for my
Dennis.
client, yes, it is very
Okay.
viable at this point.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it very viable, it's still
Got
viable.
it. And I mean, we're sort of commenting on the fact that it's so much smaller than the buildings that surround it, so why did it need to go down to one, without commenting? It's not?
No, it's next to the Grand Exchange and 88 Broad Street.
Yeah.
So that was why it went
Well,
from
actually-
130 to 120?
Actually, it is shorter, and even at 130 was shorter than the Folio, which is at 80 Broad
Oh,
Street.
the Folio, but the
Folio,
Grand
Which
Exchange
is
and 88 Broad.
the next, the building next to the one next to us.
What's the building right next to it? What's the height of that?
That's 100.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Right
That's
now,
88
it's
Broad.
Yeah.
Folio, 150.
Is this going to be a condominium?
Yes.
Folio is not on the surface artery.
Folio's here, it's 155 feet right here.
But the surrounding buildings are all under 130.
Well, yes, it depends where surrounding.
Right.
Well, I don't
I guess I was
mean-
looking at,
Place, no.
We
I
have
guess
surrounding.
I was looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
No, I actually agree. I mean, is there a rule that all these buildings have to be the same height? I mean, is there some kind of a magical formula that all those buildings need to be?
No, I don't think that, just to make it clear to everybody,
Yeah.
it's currently zoned for 100,
Okay.
right? So they're seeking dispensation from that to go
Yeah.
higher, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to
But there
change
is
something,
a
hang
zo-
on,
there is
let
a
me just
zoning
complete my
exercise
sentence.
right now.
Yeah.
So the notion is simply that they want to change the zoning to get a higher height. So
Yeah.
some people say, like anytime you change anything, some people say a little more, some people say a little
Yeah.
bit less. So now they're proposing 120, and that's what we're talking about here. And so then the question was, what's the immediately adjacent building? It's 100 feet.
Right.
And then if you go like a building over one more, it's 130. So
150.
there you
Well,
go.
that's my point,
150.
is that
There you go.
the implication is that there needs to be some correspondence with the adjoining or the abutting properties. In this case, I'm not sure that rule, if there was ever that rule, really applies, because we have to look at it as a new corridor. I mean, that's the whole point of looking at it with a fresh set of eyes. I'm just questioning the need to have this correspondence rule which matches the abutting properties. I'm just. this is-
I think it's just, that's why we're getting informed, because
Absolutely.
these are
That's why I'm raising that
conversations we should
Exactly.
understand, so that's.
Right. I think the nature of the discussion, when the BRA first made their recommendations, they were at 130 feet. So, it goes back now, we're come to 120. Anything less than that, I think probably doesn't make much sense for us. So,
It's 105.
105, the building next door is 105. Just again, just to remind you of the situation, this is in our building, this is the back of the existing building. This is a non-contributing building. The Bullfinch building is around the other side. This is the one that has all the billboards on top. And this is just a quick rendering. Again, these are early stages, it's nothing definite. but the idea is to make use of some of the extra wide sidewalk, develop a restaurant and cafe. We have some more space actually at the corner where we can expand this, and develop the bay windows, residential at the lower levels, and then a really simple curtain wall up above. So, and again, it's very early on. I think the idea is to introduce masonry as we turn the corner onto Broad Street and relate to the Bullfinch building, which we haven't really developed yet. But, so basically, it's a combination of glass, metal, and then masonry on the wrapper on the other sides. So that's fairly much. Can I answer questions?
I think we've been shooting that at you all the way along.
I think so.
But
Yeah,
are there any others? Chris?
Yeah, I have I guess a more philosophical objection, which is I don't think the BRA should be zoning, spot zoning, one little item at a time. I think we should look at the whole Greenway district study, see what that means in terms of if that was zoned at that level, and then see what it does to other things like traffic and shadow and wind, all the usual things.
Yes, those all.
And now we're doing it, if we do it one little spot at a time, it'll be the usual, just that project. And by the time you finish, you won't know what you got.
Are you criticizing us or the BRA?
The BRA.
Okay, just want to be clear.
Okay, well,
That's
the BRA gets slung out all the time, and
Yeah.
it makes the Greenway look like, nobody slings at us, so that's
We're
a.
not doing that, it's just a discussion.
No, I know the BRA is doing it, I'm saying, but I don't think it should be done at all at this point.
Well, the study that they did for the entire Greenway did recommend 130-foot.
No, that was changed after the community had to go ahead.
We're not going to argue here what the BRA is doing. The whole idea here is to inform us what developers are thinking about doing on the Greenway. This isn't approved by anyone yet, and so we want to just make sure that we know as much as anybody about what they're up to.
And I think actually our questions are reflective of the fact we're sort of coming to this with an open mind. We're not bound by what the BRA is, we're just sort of looking at it, and I think there's a benefit to that. We're just one voice, but there's a benefit to us not being constrained by any sort of faction or stakeholder. So
We have many groups to meet with.
Right.
This
Sure,
whole process
we're just one of many, and we appreciate it. Any other questions for the
I
board?
have, hopefully it's not controversial. Is there any parking accommodation in that building?
At this point, we're limiting and doing parking. We're planning on an automated parking system at this point. Yes, that would be probably about 45 cars at lower levels on stacking levels of automatic.
So would that would be on street level, not below grade?
Below grade.
Oh, below grade, okay.
How many units total?
We're probably about 70, still a little bit back and forth, 68 to 70.
I just have a comment, which is that I think certainly for the Greenway, thinking of it as the Greenway would be great to have a development there that it would bring a lot of activation and frankly look a lot better. I mean, that what's there right now is not exactly, yeah.
What's the matter with that?
No, Fred?
You see that, I see another Matthew Ritchie mural.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, what about us Jonas?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we're certainly not going to get into that discussion. Is there anything else from the board? Questions?
David has seen this.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was going to present the other parcel.
No, I know, but I've just done this parcel. Do you have a question?
That was the question, is what's the other parcel?
Okay, other parcel, coming right up. Thank you.
One of the things that we've been thinking about, and we know that it's important to you all, and it doesn't show that well here, but this corner of our building, we do have a blank spot. One idea we have is that there should really be a map of the area. One of the problems is the Bullfinch buildings that are down there. One is by Folio and one is next to us, and there's not much context. So I think because of the way we're crossing here, there's a chance to really introduce some sort of signage that really orients people and makes a bigger picture out of this project. We did a similar thing in the South End years ago at the corner of Columbus Avenue and Clarendon Street. There's a map of the South End on the building base, and it's actually very, very useful. Anyway.
The question that I asked, in case it wasn't captured, was whether there was a public restroom. The answer is yes.
Oh, and well, it's the young part question.
Yes. Answer is yes.
You're not asking.
Jim, may I borrow your easel? Thanks so much.
Good evening. I'll be brief. I know time is late.
No, thank you.
I'm David Hassin. I'm joined by Kevin Ahern and Mike Duran of Boston Residential Group and Scott Thompson from Hassin and Associates. And I have, we're very appreciative of being able to present our project with the team since the two sites are adjacent to one another. Just quickly, for orientation, I think you all know where the site is. But it sits at a rather interesting moment, actually near the Harbor Garage site that you just looked at, and also at the intersection of the cross street that crosses the Greenway in that location, more or less across from the Harbor Towers. And I think in this site plan you also sort of see the Town Cove District as that edge reached the Greenway and obviously was cut at the time that the elevated artery went through the site. Just as a little bit of a refresher, this is a snapshot of the Greenway District Planning Study massing, which did take into account all of the heights of the neighboring buildings and did recommend at that time a 130-foot height for the building. Like the team before us, we are going to be showing you a building at 120 feet, but I did want to sort of mention that. And let me just use this diagram to just say a few things about some of the principles that we have, can everybody see this over here? That we've employed. Like the previous team, we think this is an amazing opportunity to actually create a face on the Greenway for a new building.
David, maybe you want to put it over on the other one.
Sure.
On this side. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We think it's an amazing opportunity to create a building that has a face on the Greenway, that nestles into the Town Cove District with a different character, which I'll go into in a moment. And it's also interesting to note that the edge of the Greenway here, far from being a sort of consistent boulevard of building faces that are at any one location, actually have a number of jogs and angles and different orientations to them. And we've taken that into account in our design as well. Let me just show you, before I get into showing you the elevation of the plan, there's some interesting things about the plan itself. On the ground floor of the building, so here you see India Street and the Greenway, Franklin and Well Street. For those of you who are familiar, these streets are a little tight in the back of the building, and we are trying to improve those conditions there. We are actually locating the lobby of the building at the inside corner to activate the street area in favor of, and we've worked very hard to do this, in favor of creating a large contiguous retail space that directly abuts the Greenway, that actually has room for outdoor seating and so forth, while still maintaining the generous sidewalk widths that I think we all want along the Greenway. I think that on the upper floors, and you'll notice the beginnings of a sort of a serrated pattern to this. This is all partly an architectural response and partly a response to the fact that we're dealing with an enormous number of utilities that are underneath our site, and that are actually forcing a lot of the structure of the building into the rear part of the site. On the upper levels, we're showing a number of units, all with views of the Greenway, with the exception of one unit in the rear corner. How that manifests itself architecturally is what you see here in this upper drawing. This is the project that you just saw. This is the grain exchange building. Folio is in this corner here. And what we're proposing is a building that has sort of a rippling glass facade on the Greenway that is evocative of water and will catch the light in interesting ways, and a building that sort of tucks into the more traditional streetscape behind. So this is an elevation which basically shows the height of the building. This orange line is the 120-foot line, so this is showing our previous scheme with the floor taken off that brings the site down to 120 feet. And you can also begin to see the relationship of the building to all of the adjacent heights of the other buildings, including the Folio building, the towers, the turrets of the grain exchange, and so forth. As we turn the corner into the district, we are proposing a masonry, a brick facades that are relating to the brick facades of the buildings directly behind. And then here, ultimately, you have a view of the building looking at the Greenway, showing the Greenway obviously on this side. And what you'll see is that we have a little bit of a cantilever condition because, again, of the low-grade utilities, a little bit of a cantilever condition which creates this really wonderful 18-foot-high retail, glassy retail front, which will open directly onto the Greenway, offering restaurant opportunities there. And the angles and so forth catch a lot of the different angles and so forth of the Greenway, but still create a front and an edge for the building in that location. And it's very early days for the project at this point, but I also wanted to indicate that we have started to investigate looking at the project 10 feet lower than the 130-foot height, and we are also exploring some really interesting glass skin systems that will, because of the nature of the way light and so forth moves up and down the Greenway, will make this a very animated and interesting facade. And happy to take questions.
Any questions the board has?
I'm sorry, did you have a photo or a drawing of that building with the one we just saw next to it?
But
Do
I
you
don't
mind just
think
showing that?
we reduced the height.
Yes, I don't think it's quite right because I don't think we have the latest information, but that's the building. And this is, this is actually showing also at about 150 feet, so we're probably about right. Although, it hasn't been formally answered.
Linda?
Just from the Greenway's perspective too, is that we'll be looking at this from a shadow standpoint, because this will create some shadow in the Greenway parks, and sort of how much, over what duration, wind impacts, glare from glass, and sort of how the building, sort of some of the detail of the massing and everything will can impact that, in addition to just ground floor uses.
Yeah, absolutely, and because we're just at the beginning of the process.
Right, so preliminary, we really
we know we have to
appreciate
do the wind studies and all of that, and I think we've tried to mask the building so that it casts as slim a shadow as possible on the Greenway for as short a period of time as possible, but, early days, and we look forward to getting there.
I will also say that both firms have been having a great deal of dialogue back and forth. I think respective to the development community and with respect to all the neighborhoods, it's actually been a really interesting process because in some respects, the two projects together create a really unique opportunity that sort of allows us to think much more holistically.
Yeah, for example, the ground plane, we've been in conversation about making sure that the ground plane of the two buildings are coordinated and that there's a similar landscape treatment that obviously works with what's proposed, and so yes.
Great, thank you. We've got a bonus development to think about.
Will that be called condos also, and how many?
That will be condominiums where, with the changes in height and so forth, we're juggling the numbers, but call it 50-ish.
Is that the same with the other one?
So 68 to 70.
Oh.
Any
Thank
other
you. Thank you very much.
questions? Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you,
terrific.
Thank
both
you.
developers.
Thank you.
And it was really interesting to hear about how it interplays together and whatever. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that's, everybody wants to say hi to Harry, but we're going to go, so hi, Harry. We're going to keep going because we've got 15 minutes to the close of the meeting, and Jesse's got a report to give us, and there's some updates that I want to give you. I really do appreciate everybody's discussion about this, because I think that it's so important what happens. The Greenway isn't just the little strip that's the Greenway, it's what's on both sides, and so it's important for us to understand how the interplay works. So thank you.
This is perfect stuff.
I think it's also important because the Greenway is, in many ways, the economic driver that is leading to this stuff. I mean, certainly the highway coming down, but also the fact that it is a good-looking front yard to all of these properties.
I was fishing around websites the other day, over the weekend, in terms of what was going on, and it's remarkable how everybody talks about how many steps to the Greenway they are. You know, even if they're a block in or whatever, so it wasn't even in the district that was part of this. They talk about steps to the Greenway.
They didn't do that with the highway?
Yeah, I don't remember that happening, Tom. So, Jesse, would you like to give us your...
Could I just add one thing? One of the things that Jesse and I talked about was, I think this is a great idea, bringing folks before the board to talk about projects and development along the Greenway. I also thought it might be a good idea if we could bring some of the neighborhood groups of the different neighborhoods that abut the Greenway, to bring them before the board, so that perhaps the board could learn about and understand the different communities, the organizations that represent the people who live along the Greenway. So.
You know, this board represents a lot of that.
No, I know it does.
But we can do that too. That's a great idea. Super. Jesse?
So bringing us back onto the Greenway, wanted to give a series of short updates on things that are going on. Thank you. So first, starting on the maintenance side of things, project that we talked about at the last meeting is now essentially complete, which is we talked in the abstract about how the park is getting older and things need repair. At the North End fountains and at the wall along these, we had a contractor come in and do a bunch of masonry work, resetting, resealing. There were products that were used in the original installation that were not the right product and didn't hold up over time, and caused trip hazards or cracking in granite. And so a couple of pictures of that work going on. Most of it done by contractors, some of it done by our staff. From there to, we are still doing punch list, finishing up on carousel. So this is bringing in trash cans. This is actually the double trash can and recycling to the carousel site.
You know, I'm glad you clarified. I thought that was a new ride you were putting in. Waka, waka, waka. I'll be here all week, folks. Try the veal.
Another less happy update, we are experiencing, and I think many of you who live around here have seen this, but we're experiencing a lot of homeless issues on the Greenway. This has come up before at the Leather District community meeting that we had a few weeks ago. It was a topic there. Steve and his team have taken a walk with the police, and James Chan from Councilor Linehan's office accompanied. We've been talking to Salamatina and to Aaron Michaelwitz and so on about these issues. Work Inc. is finding that 80% of the recyclables taken off of the Greenway these days are cardboard bedding for homeless. And so it is a problem not just on the Greenway. From talking with the police and from talking with homeless services in the city, it is something that has stepped up significantly in the last handful of months across the city. I've not heard an explanation for why that might be citywide, but a significant concern, and we're finding a lot of trampled plants, and it is a social issue. It is also, for us as maintainers of the Greenway, a physical issue.
One big issue is they've made a concerted effort to drive homeless out of South Station, and that was a very important overnight location for homeless. I'm not saying that was right or wrong, but that's what happened. So obviously when people are driven out of South Station, they have no place to go now, so they make their way in surrounding neighborhoods, which include the Leather District, which include the Greenway, so one success leads to another problem.
Yeah, and certainly we find in our discussions with the police that they feel ill-equipped to deal with the root causes, and that they are pushing the problem from one place to another. This is another example of in the Chinatown Park area. This is an area that because of homeless use there, plants had died. Also, the selection of plants that were there were causing areas that were sort of screened and allowed sleeping. So with, here's more rundown. We did some planting to try to improve the area and try and make it a little less attractive. It is an ongoing, I mean, every day we are, Steve's staff is
a little more attractive, a little less available.
Yes, right. Less attractive for sleeping, more attractive for looking. Every day, the staff is beginning with a walk down and noting all of the areas, pulling bedding out, and an ongoing challenge. Just some other horticulture that's a little happier. We have done a lot of planting, and here are a series of projects right in front of Atlantic Wharf, in the 4-Point Channel, some evergreen trees. That's a park that has really nice 3-season horticulture right now, but that in the winter, there was a lot of dieback, a fair number of things that had to be cut back, and it had a rather bare look. And so 1, 2, 3 evergreens, a 4th evergreen, a 5th evergreen, and then some low shrubs that all went in. In Chinatown, we have done a significant amount of planting in the last year. I think we've showed pictures of that before. There are still areas that get a little loved to death there and lead to the opportunity for, in the fall, filling those in temporarily for a splash of color with mums. Switching from Chinatown back to the park in front of Atlantic Wharf, in the southeast corner there that you're looking at, again, some roses and some evergreen shrubs that went in. This is now the park, 4-Point Channel Park, in front of the Intercontinental. This is the eastern sidewalk there, some roses planted in the corner that were a little, an area that was a little weaker on planting. At Armenian Heritage Park, they mentioned this last time, but we did some fill-in planting in conjunction with the Armenian Heritage Foundation. They paid for, we pointed out the difference between what the original planting plan was and what was on site, and suggested some additions that could be made, and that as the maintainers of the park now, we did fill-in planting there. Also some fill-in planting along the promenade, where clethra and other plants were added. I'm looking for confirmation.
You say clethra?
Clethra, yeah.
Did you get a plethora of clethra?
Exactly.
And then we have a pleonasm in there too.
In areas that in the spring we did, we replaced trees that were dead. We have now gone in and added sort of the ground cover around them this fall. We did an irrigation audit. If you were out on the right day, you would have seen placed in a geometric pattern little Tupperware cups all over, where it was the irrigation system was run and it was measured in all sorts of locations, exactly how much water was captured there, and allows us to adjust and minimize the water use, which is both a cost savings as well as leads to stronger plants. They dig deeper roots. This is a picture of grubs, but unless you can tell me what this is, Steve, I'm not sure what the point is. Grubs, okay? From there to our staff, Ian is one of the seasonal horticulturalists who does the tree pruning for us, and at the Armenian Heritage Foundation Armenian Heritage Park, went through and pruned the trees there to return them to the natural shape, or the desired shape.
I believe the grubs are being attacked by nematodes. Probably why they put that in there.
The death of every good PowerPoint presentation, the grub. We're going good.
We did not work this out in advance. This is on the fly, this comedy routine you're seeing.
You can introduce naga hides too?
On the southern end of the park, right in front of the Boston Harbor Hotel, a lot of planting went in this fall. So this is prepared, and a bunch of transplanting was done. First round of plants, and you start to see the addition of plants and the color that it creates there, and the variety of textures. It will fill in a fairly significant way over the next couple of seasons, and you can kind of see if you go 2 blocks north at the Rings Fountain, where that planting was done about a year and a half ago, you can see what this will look like, in a year and a half's time. Much fuller and creating a lot of that screaming from the street and the 4 seasons of interest that we're looking for. Another picture of the same, and from the street side, it's a little hard with the overhead lights, but it's really nice color. A lot of volunteer help, bulbs and other things going in this fall. It is something like 10,000 bulbs that are being planted this fall, significantly with the help of volunteers. This is on the parcel in front
I think
of.
there's a grub joke to be made, but I can't find it.
From horticulture to a few other updates. You may have read about in the newspaper, Seat E. We worked with the 3 people from the MIT Media Lab. They are 3 of those in the lower right-hand corner. These benches are solar powered. They're here in the north end, right at the Freedom Trail. You can plug your phone in to charge it. And so they've gotten a lot of nice coverage. A fun thing, they will be out, 2 are out now. I think 2 more are coming. They will be pulled out in the winter and then put back again in the spring.
What do they cost?
They cost us nothing.
Oh, so they're donated?
This is a pilot. They intend to sell them, in 2 years or something. They are doing a pilot of them and learning. I mean, these are literally their first prototypes, kind of hand built. And they will be adding to. Right now, you can plug your phone in. They will be adding things like air quality sensors and other kind of dynamic elements. So yeah, pretty great partnership, great group of people. From there to, we talked about this in advance last time, but Carousel Community Day, this was on Columbus Day, same day that Christopher Columbus and the Friends of Christopher Columbus Park were having activities in the park. There we had the carousel open for buy one, get one free tickets, and had quite a good crowd, a lot of happy families, a great day. The carousel is no longer open daily. It is now open essentially weekends through the end of the year. Here are the specific hours. We will again, in partnership with Friends from Christopher Columbus Park, have the carousel open on a non-weekend day, on Monday, the day of the evening of the trellis being lit. We have done, last year we launched our membership program, and in a pilot, major mailing went out for our membership program. I think we may have brochures here, so I'd encourage everyone in the audience to become a member. Also, encouraging all the board members to become members, not just because it's a great way to donate to our wonderful nonprofit, but also because it's a great way to sort of keep an eye on what are the mailings that are going out and hear your perspective on what you thought of and what you thought of the frequency of and so on. Lastly, and to perhaps further encourage you to become a member for the second year in a row, we were recognized by greatnonprofits.org. Last year, they did a press release actually indicating that we were one of the leading environmental organizations in the country and one of the only environmental organizations in Boston that was recognized. So proud to win it again. Check it out. Lots of nice reviews of the Conservancy on their website. With that, Georgia, why don't I hand it back to you unless there are any questions.
Okay, well done. Well done indeed. What, any questions for Jesse on that?
Not of this, but any update on our
Yeah,
favorite subject?
yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to report that, we're talking with DOT. They have given us every indication that they're renewing the lease. I think it will be a renewal that will be ongoing for a while until we get down to talking brass tacks on all the details. But they've assured me that the subsidy will continue come December 1, that we'll have a piece of paper that says that we have the absolute right to run the Greenway as we have in the past. And I expect that this will be a continuing kind of renewal at some point. I don't know yet. You guys are meeting over there tomorrow, and Jeffrey Simon of the real estate division said he'd get back to me. But really good conversations, really good vibes. I think this partnership is recognized by both DOT and us as something that is good for the Greenway. And there's no indication that there's any real problem other than a time and focus they've got a lot going on over there with the new finance bill that went through this summer. And so it's just a question of focus. I think we should take it as a kudos to us that we're the least of their problems, and they just want to get something in writing.
We can fix that.
No, I'm not anxious to do that. But just something in writing to get it going forward. But I think that the sort of drama of, the lease is expiring November 30th can be kind of put to bed. I don't know how long the extensions will go for, but I think that we will get eventually a long-term lease agreement. I just don't know when, but I don't think it's that there's a precipice that we're hitting.
I sure hope that happens while Governor Patrick is still governor. I'd rather take my chances now than roll the dice to see who gets elected.
You just never know. So, there's been an election in town too, as you all know. I hope to meet with the mayor-elect next week, and he's made very good comments about the Greenway during the run-up to his election. So I'm hoping to remind him of all those wonderful things he said about the Greenway, and to see if we can get our public-private partnership expanded to include some city work, and we'll see. I have no idea where that will go, but he certainly is willing to talk about it, and that's good. So we'll keep everyone posted on how that goes. There's a lot going on. But I would say that the last month I was concerned that we weren't having discussions. We are now, and I think that we'll be able to go forward.
Good.
Any other questions? We're just about out of time. We're not over. Ooh, we're 3 minutes over. Any other questions from
No.
Yes.
Ann Fanton, I was just going to say, I watched Matt's video, your discussion of the ramp parcels last month, and wanted to say I thought it was great that somebody's talking about the ramp parcels. It may be beyond your means, but I would encourage you not just to think about temporary fixes, and not to be concerned about the public process that will be involved if and when anything goes forward, because I think it's probably one of the most important, outstanding issues that there is, and I was just pleased to hear you talking about it. There was concern about what you did.
For those of you who don't know Ann, she is pretty much of an authority on the ramp both from the federal, state, and community point of view, and so it's wonderful to have you as a resource. We appreciate it.
Great.
So great. I think that's a wrap. Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.